Yo, 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 what's good, everybody? What's good? This your boy JTL, aka Out for the No 18, aka Big Op. Back up in this thing. Now, shout out to anybody who shows up. I know it's late night on Late Night Creek, or whoever catches this on a replay. Shout out to Slick, cousin Slick, you know who he is. So y'all see the title, let's talk about it. So, Miss Pearly Things. Now, we know what's been going on, been a really a hot topic for the last couple of weeks. And, I did some videos covering some things she said, that, of course, black people that got their consciousness, they weren't feeling it. So I'm like, let me go ahead and cover. This was 4 months ago, before now. So shout out to Jason Black, the Business Podcast. He was able to bring more light to it because I didn't see when she did the Nick Fuentes interview, but he did. So he saw that, he came across it, like I said, it still was a couple months ago, but he came across it, put it out there. He been calling it out. You know what I mean? So I thought about certain things I seen in the past that I didn't cover. And I seen this title and I was like, I don't know why I didn't pay attention to it. Now, this was before I seen the one where she was talking to Sarah Garvey and a couple other people in the room. So she had some things to say on slavery, but on that video, she had like she didn't know anything about redlining, the history and all that, but she brought up Time and Soul. So I was like, that is kind of questionable. So I want to show this video that I'm talking about that I came across, and there's other stuff to show. I definitely also want to show Sarah Garvey some love. Hopefully I can get the brother on the channel because I want to be able to actually talk about certain things he talked about because of what he had to say about it. But let me not carry on too much longer because I really want to get to this video. She didn't know anything, but she was able to school her friend on something. Now, I'm sure y'all seen this black young lady before. She's been on Pearl stuff. And it seemed like she was with it when it was talking about the situations with women, feminism, and all of that stuff. But I didn't know she didn't really know a history like that. So that's why it was easy to kind of come at her like that because Pearl wouldn't come at Sarah like that. But real quick, the reason why I had Nip Hustle up the guy rest his soul, fortunately he lost his life on March 31st, 2019, 2 days after my birthday. And so I just put the brother up there, man, just to show some love to him. Rest in peace, man. The marathon continues. Believe that. So let's go ahead and let's get into this video. I introduced my friend to Red Pill for the first time.
Just Pearly Things podcast.
I'm gonna skip a little bit.
I'm like,
and just to keep in mind, y'all, she getting paid for this bullshit. But don't worry, I'm gonna have the ads removed on the next video.
Black person talk about this stuff, but then there's a lot of other things that go into that.
You know what? So I always wonder, like, who cares who's talking about it if what they're saying is true?
Yeah, that is true.
Now, I mean, I could be wrong, but like, it's just like, to me, it doesn't matter as long as the information is correct.
Yeah. I don't know. I just always like, I don't know. It's just like,
yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah, it's just a thought.
Now, real quick, Pearl is basically the black young lady was saying she don't get why they talking on her. And she said, who cares as long as the information is correct. It's a difference from giving information, and it's a difference from trying to debunk something to prove a point versus trying to actually help somebody with something. But you think it helps them by it really helps you.
Like these white people.
What do they know? No, I'm kidding. I kid.
So two different cultures of people with dark skin next to each other. And one culture is these people from the West Indies. And one culture is this group of people who grew up.
She's showing a video of Joe Rogan talking to somebody. I forget who the guy's name is.
In the South with slavery and all that sort of stuff. Now, what one group, the West Indies group, does really well. So a lot of the successful black people like Colin Powell, are originally from that cultural heritage. The other group is the group that you find in ghettos and African-American communities and all that sort of stuff. They don't do well, right? They don't get good education. They, shoot each other. There are all these sorts of things. And the reason why Soul has been...
And see, a problem with that off rip already, that's not all black Americans. That's an issue that we still have to keep dealing with to this day. It don't matter what you do. He brought up Colin Powell, but unless people really looked into it, That wasn't a thing he put on the forefront that he was from, from the islands or somewhere like that. But they say it was the ghettos. That's the problem with these other people. That's why they don't do well. They popping each other and all that. That's not true for every Black American. Some people got to watch when they say certain shit like that.
Telling this story is because he's been trying to say, when liberals look at the people in ghettos,
Thomas Sowell, that's what we're talking about.
They say, racism. That's why they're not succeeding. And Sowell is saying, no, it's not. Because if you look at this group from the West Indies, they also came from the experience of slavery. There was slavery in the West Indies. They are also Black, so they also face racism, and yet they do well. So it has to be something else.
Now think about this. I want to bring this in here. He's saying it has to be something else. It's not racism. Now, and I'm not trying to be funny. I love my folks from the islands that I know. I just don't care for the ones that talk shit. If we're gonna tell the truth about it, right? But let's talk about this respectfully. When you go to Africa, and you got a lot of places over there that's not doing well. There's a lot of places in Jamaica that's not doing well. Explain to me why it's difficult for them to build up in their own countries versus having to come here. Now, this is the thing. When we go over there and the money that we make, they look at us like we making a lot of money versus them. Since the currency could be different, a little higher and all of that. You go over there and ways to make certain money or be around certain places, like especially if you use the internet, you got O'Shea Duke Jackson. They're looking at him like he balling. So it's got to be something to it on both sides, because if they was doing so much better and able to do so much better, they would just stay in their own countries and keep building that up. So they come over here and see the problems we have. Think, why you ain't doing this? You able to do better. But if we go to your country, why is it the same thing? I think it's something to that they're not addressing. They just going off the people to separate and see who's better than who. And that was always certain white people's argument, especially Republicans. Let's talk about that.
And that other thing is the fact that these Black people who are in the South, there's always been a big question, were Black people robbed of their culture, or did they preserve their authentic African culture? And what Sowell is saying is that they were robbed of their culture, and so they picked up the culture of the people around them, and the people around them were rednecks. And if you look at the white redneck culture and the Black redneck culture, they have a lot of the same values. They don't particularly respect education. They love Jesus. They use violence in their conflicts. And they, there's just, a lot of the same values and a lot of the same outcomes. And
so that's for most Black people. We don't solve our conflicts and issues with good common sense. Now, explain to me why when you had Birth of a Nation, 1920s, and the stigma that they put out there by Black people, even when we were doing our best, some kind of change came in place. What time period is he talking about? Because I talked about it last time. I got to do a video on it. Nobody talks about all these cities that was burnt down in their argument. They don't talk about when we was doing good and motherfuckers was jealous and burning down our shit. They don't talk about that stuff. No, we're just ignorant and stupid and dumb. But we love some Jesus, though. Wow. Wow.
I've had that thought before. I'm like, there's so many similarities between I'll say this group is a Black group, but then you have your version of it for white people. And I'm like, they're similar. It's just that's the rednecks and
it's the same culture.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So here's some crazy. I know I've read the book he's talking about.
Okay.
1 out of every 3 white people derive from that culture in the United States. 9 out of every 10 Black people did. If you look at the economic outcomes,
but she don't know nothing about redlining, y'all.
Of the 1 out of the 10 Black people that did not, they're very similar to white.
Wow.
And the rednecks also have very similar economic outcomes. They had 1 out of every 4 dairy cows were they had in the antebellum South, yet they only produced 7% of the country's dairy because it was just really unproductive. And there was, all the the like whippings or whatever, like that
Mhm,
stuff.
mhm.
Like it was just common there. Like the white people were whipped too. It, like they were.
You see how she said that? Our culture is redneck culture. You know, you had blacks everywhere, slaves at that. They wasn't whipping them in the north, I guess, or Midwest. It was just in the south. But she said it was a common thing to be whipped. That wasn't part of the Willie Lynch moniker of how to train slaves. But guess what? They did more than that. So was chopping off a man's member common? Was torture if work don't get done common? You see how she's trying to downplay and say, "Oh, they just did that to everybody." How can you downplay like it was okay? We talking about a specific group of people, but if she's saying that's where it come from, let's just challenge all her thoughts.
There was more recorded lashings of like the white people down there than there was the black people.
Okay, so they recorded it more, maybe because they cared more for white people. You think they're gonna record what they doing to slaves like that? Really? You think they whip them, then go back in the house and then put a line? All right, that's one whipping a day. No. What are we talking about?
And the other crazy thing, like which when I heard that stat, I was like, "There's no way."
Yeah, I'm
There's
like,
no. That's
where'd
what-
you
that's
get your
what- no,
information at, Pearl?
no,
I'm
no, it's-
kidding.
Yeah, right. She believed it off the rip.
This book, like I'll tell. I can. It's in my room. I can show it to you. But no.
I gotta show you this book, Negro. You don't know nothing.
And then the other crazy thing is they like okay, you hear it a lot in like rap culture.
Mhm,
Respect.
mhm.
That was one of the number one reasons people were killed in the antebellum South is he looked at me funny. No, he had no respect.
Oh wow.
And it
Yeah.
actually came from England. Yeah, it's like
from where we are now.
yeah, that's where the culture. But Sowell talks
Mhm.
about this. Sometimes the culture dies out where it is,
Mhm.
and it still is transplanted to somewhere else. So, for example, in Canada, they speak Quebec.
So I guess they didn't have reckless eyeballing everywhere. That was just in the South. That was just in the South. I don't. He looked at me a certain way, so that's why that person lost their life. He disrespected me. Go out there and look at a white woman wherever you at and see what happened to you nowadays. I guess that comes from the South, even though that can happen in New York, LA, or wherever. Okay.
Back or whatever.
Mhm.
There's something he used an example from Canada, and I think it was that they speak a language there that is died out in like
Okay.
in France.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. When I had learned
Canada had race issues too.
this, I was like, shut up.
A performance that truly
But it's just so funny how she's just taking this. Like I said, commercials are here to let y'all see she making money off this rubbish.
So, if Black people never adapted to the culture that we were put in,
Mm-hmm.
we'd be like we'd be in a different position. But then, what would that say about the culture we have now? Is it truly like Black culture? Is it just like some form?
Okay, here's the
Oh,
other crazy
gosh,
thing.
why'd I
I'm too
ask?
excited to like. Okay, so
I'm
a lot of the
She's excited to tell her.
I don't even like saying Black culture
Mhm.
because again, there's 1 out of every 10 Black people that didn't derive from that culture, and probably more now with the people
Mhm.
that came.
Yeah.
Right? But
Said 1 out of 10 didn't derive from that culture. 1 out of 10. So that she's saying 9 out of 10 Black people come from the redneck culture. Y'all really pay attention to that.
redneck culture has phrases like "you was," "you be." Those dialects are from England.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that. Wow.
And a lot of
So she's trying to say our slave masters taught that, even though slavery was all around the country. But she's trying to say she's trying to blame it on the South and disconnect herself from that. And since Thomas Sowell, real quick, is Republican now, or been for so many years and decades now, he's using an argument that white people can swallow easy, which is it's not all of y'all. Not all of y'all are bad. He's talking to classism. That's what we have to be careful about with Republicans, conservatives, or whatever. They try to separate it to classism, like y'all not the same. Y'all all European descent. Y'all all European descent. if y'all gonna put all these numbers on us as black people, even a black man, we got to put it all on all of y'all too.
The things they say is like black culture.
Mhm.
They're really not black culture. It's literally from England.
That's interesting.
We have no black culture. I was just waiting for her to bring up whatever Thomas Sowell said. I'll probably go through on the video where they talking about the book. I'm waiting for them to talk about the chitlins and all of that. Pig intestines, collard greens, watermelon, fried chicken. I'm waiting for them to talk about all of that. Because the white people don't eat that too. But we have no culture. And our Africans was brainwashed to believe that too. That's why they'll say it to us. You have no culture. Certain Africans. We have no culture. We got our culture from white people.
Pearl, I did not want my
And
brain
another
to be
Look how
crazy
she
rattled
looking at her,
today.
y'all.
Another crazy thing, when race relations got really bad in the US, like
Mhm.
in the 60s,
Mhm.
race relations were getting better before that. But what happened was a huge group of people from the South migrated.
Mm.
So when then you would see race
She's saying that in the North, white folks was treating us good. We was fine, y'all. But then when these Southern Negroes came up here, it became a problem. Now watch what she say.
relations get bad.
Mhm.
So like in the 20s, 30s, 40s, basically, and I might be butchering the years, right?
Mhm.
But they how do I say this? Race relations were getting better, and they measured this with like instances of hate crimes were going down.
Okay.
There's less they didn't have the like no blacks allowed signs.
Mhm.
The interracial marriages were going up. So all the ways they measure race relations,
Mhm.
everything was getting better. Then a huge influx of
She said people started marrying out more because they moved up north. Race relations and all that, no colors allowed, no blacks allowed, because the Southern blacks came up. It makes me question, is it because they came up and didn't know their place? These other black folks knew they couldn't come over here. But for some reason, the blacks came from the South, move up north, and then start thinking these white people are nicer, so they can go ahead and go eat wherever they want. And the black people around there didn't tell them, no, you better not go around there, y'all. Master ain't gonna have that. I don't know. I find that hard to believe.
the population from the South came in. That's when you see the race relations get bad again. The signs come up. And it was very similar with white Southerners in Indiana.
Mhm.
And like the way they described the white Southerners
she's from the Midwest.
like that from the South that moved to Indiana was very similar to like the racist writings that you see about black people. Like the words were like so similar.
Wow.
But it's funny how she can believe what a right winger says, no problem. But when Sarah Garvey was trying to talk to her and explain her redlining, colonizing, she couldn't understand it at all. But for some reason, she's easily able to regurgitate these things that come from right wingers, especially if they're black.
Like stuff like this. I know, like, not everybody's going to believe it, and they're going to be like, oh, it's fabricated, blah, 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 because we haven't, like, heard anything about it. So it's like
You haven't heard anything about the bullshit lies. Plenty of us have. Now, I ain't saying certain things she's saying may not be true, but what I am saying, there's a little embellishment going on. There's a little sidestepping, pivoting, a lot of shit going on, a lot of goalposts moving on. I mean, the fact, like, let's keep it real quick. I guarantee you won't see Pearl trying to tell Jewish people respect to the Jewish community. She won't try to tell them about their history. I guarantee you that.
phenomenon to hear stats like this. Even when you're telling me this, I'm like, I'm still like questioning it because I've never ever heard anything like this. And it's like,
You should have questioned it more.
just imagine if this was something that was taught in our school system, but if it was something taught in our school system, then the trajectory of the US would change completely. And
Yeah. I mean, instead I had an ex-boyfriend that told me they took him to a cotton farm.
oh, I've been to weddings on a plantation. I'm like, this is interesting.
No, they
It's
had
just-
him pick cotton, like as the school. Yeah.
The school?
Yes, like they're wilded at these Chicago public schools. He told me that he
Wow.
hated white people, that he was like taught to hate white people in school.
Wow.
And I'm like, what why would they do that?
wow.
And it's also
Yeah,
that's why I don't
white
even
people
like
are so
saying
nice.
black
Why would they teach
culture,
you that?
because a
Mhm.
lot of it like that's what 10% of the population, it doesn't come from this culture, probably more.
Maybe they took your black, quote unquote, air quote, boyfriend to see the conflicts and what slaves went through, what our ancestors went through. Yeah, why would they teach them that history? Why would they teach them about the atrocious thing? Like all the stuff that she is saying, she is trying to say stuff to downplay. Ain't nothing more racist than somebody trying to tell you what your ancestors went through is not bad as they make it seem. Just like Nick Fuentes did talking about Jewish people. She didn't jump in on that. She said black people. And she ain't been around black people like that, come to find out. The most she's been around black people is in the UK. And unfortunately, you already know how they do the mindset. Shout out to my cousin. We talked about the monarchy that they have over there. The way their mentality is totally different, or the brainwashing. So how come if that's over there in England, those blacks that are in the UK didn't have the same mindset they're talking about that we got? You be, we be, and all of that bullshit. They taught this stuff in school, it just be more brainwashing. I get it. It's wrong to teach us that we need y'all help, but it seems like Pearl is doing the same thing. You need my help. Come on now. She has the maternal hand instinct as a white person.
Now,
Yeah.
I actually switched from Chrome to Opera GX.
Y'all pardon the commercial. She's getting paid. He look like a woman.
My brain's gonna be scrambled today.
Poor girl, she don't know
Scrambled
shit.
eggs coming right up.
Can't do her history, y'all. You gotta do your
And
history.
even Ebonics, which is Black English, is actually all from the west of England. So it's actually this.
What?
It's from the west of England. So, for example, if you go to places like Cornwall, there used to be these amazing ads on British TV, right, for this Devon custard or whatever, and they would always say Devon knows how they make it so creamy, and they all talk like this, right? And so it doesn't sound like Black English, but they do say things like "I be doing that," and "we be doing this," and "you be doing that," and "they be doing that," and so there's that use of that copula "be," right? Where
And real quick, this is another funny thing. Our black Ebonics, black people talking Ebonics. They're saying for the most part. Black people talking Ebonics, broken English, sounding stupid without grammar, right? I be big up, y'all. That who I be. But explain to me how talking English, period, is not European. Explain to me how, whether you want to say proper or improper English, it's not European. They separated themselves when they came to this country to get away from over there, from European and all that British rule, European rule, whatever. The queen, the king, and all of that. They wanted to do something different. So they separated themselves. They tried to figure out what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it. That's okay. That's supposed to be okay. They act like they don't have European descent. Then you got some whites, I'm American, I don't know what you're talking about. Even though you go through your history, you're going to find out different. But you got a lot of whites that do that. Just because we don't have accents now does not fucking mean that y'all don't have European descent. Telling y'all, be careful about that. Start doing your research and learning. It's more of a mind control game that they playing.
or instead of saying I am, you are, he is, she is, they are, they just say I be, you be, we be, they be, which is the classic feature of Black English, African American vernacular English. Right.
Hey, Joe, whoa, yeah, we all talk like that. I be, we be, let me be. Get back to this video, y'all.
Now, the point is that
Mind blower.
mind blower. Now, let's imagine that. How do you think that Thomas Sowell has been received by liberal America?
More white people.
Not well.
Not
Right.
well.
Not well. And so, for example, Sowell has a book called Black Rednecks, White Liberals. Okay. And his whole point.
I saw that book in your room and I
Yeah.
was like, huh? What does that mean? I was like, girl, what you reading in here? Okay, I know what book he's talking about now.
I
But
know
you
more
get
than
it's
you,
the black
Negro.
rednecks and
Yeah.
the white liberals. It's the same
Yeah.
culture.
Black
I
people,
do.
our
I do
culture
be
is
getting
white
weird
red.
stares when I'm reading that book. I'm like, no, it's not like
Instead
that.
of 1 out of
It's a
10.
good book. It's a good book. I promise.
The rest of us is
Interesting.
ignorant.
So,
We
so
be Negroes.
And you know what's crazy too? When people be like, "Oh, I hate this," they'll
Mhm.
say, "Oh, you talk white." One, offensive.
Mhm.
Two, it's not even white. Like it's
That's more offensive than you trying to sit here and tell this young black woman her history. You just had to pass it along for a time, and so what? Don't worry, Thomas. I'll get in there and I'll handle that.
not or like it's not even like if you talk
Mhm.
like a black person. No, it's not black.
Yeah.
It's or
It's West England.
Yeah.
It's West England. We don't talk like nothing, y'all. We don't talk like anything. We're just copying out more white people. But when you talk proper English, you're sounding like America? Or do you just sound like European descent who decided to fight against being a part of it anymore? They're, the true ancestry, like rule and all of that. So that the accents and everything eventually went away. So we talk like them, we're talking black, we're talking African. No, we're talking white. The way I'm talking right now is talking white. It is European. If you want to say European instead of white, white is a color. But I'm talking in a European dialect. It technically, and everybody over there technically is Caucasian. So for the most part, so I'm talking European. Even if I don't talk in broken grammar, even if I don't talk in patois, even if I don't talk African, if I talk in American English, I am still talking European, just without the accent. Y'all be careful about that shit and learn something.
I want to go to West England now and be like, let me hear you talk. Just say
We
something.
could do a video. We could write it off.
We could. That might be coming up. Travels to hear Ebonics.
Point is that
They never did.
if you actually, and again, like Soul is, he researches the shit out of this stuff. He really does his work.
He lets us
Now,
off the
if
hook. We
you-
appreciate
if you
Thomas.
look at the experience of African Americans after slavery, they do really, they start to make real progress, right? And a large part of the reason why they make progress is because you start to get a lot of people from New England, either, black people from New England or white people from New England, who come down and sort of reshape the culture. They create these schools and they're teaching those New England values, right? It's those Puritan values of hard work, tenacity, all of that sort of stuff. And so there's all this progress. And you have people like Booker T. Washington. And Booker T. Washington was an actual slave. And then after he got his freedom, he got to go work in a salt mine, which is literally the worst job ever. And in Booker T. Washington's Up From Slavery, he tells this great story about seeing a schoolhouse, right? And that, he thought that going into a schoolhouse was about as close to heaven on earth as you could get.
Whoa.
Like, this is a dude who wanted an education really, really badly. And that's a lot of what you find in the, early black experience in, the post-slavery period. And in fact, blacks, before sort of World War II actually had higher rates of marriage than whites, all of these sorts of things that, are now supposedly a problem. And then there's this turnaround, right? The black experience starts to go south, right? It starts to get worse.
And what year is this around?
This is post-World.
Yeah, but they don't talk about his experiences of trying to get education to disrespect whites gay. That's why W.E.B. Du Bois, Du Bois, I'm sorry. I be messing up his last name. But I be there. Ooh, there we go. I usually mess up his last name. The miseducation of the Negro. Trying to get an education and being told that you are less than. So when Malcolm X talks about his lived experience as a child in Illinois and wanting to do certain things and being told you're black, it's not gonna happen. You ain't gonna be shit. Was that white person who was teaching him in school from the South? Did whites from the South do the Great Migration as well? We know about white flight. So did they do that as well? Pretty sure they did. But I'm gonna let them off the hook because those are not. We're not like those whites. And we always know about classism. We're not like those trailer trash whites or those southern piece of crap whites, trash whites. They try to separate themselves all the time.
World War II, right? So
We couldn't figure out why are people.
We couldn't figure out why Pearl is so racist.
So post-slavery, Black people experience a rebounding.
they're starting to make some progress. There's
making
ambition.
progress.
Yeah. And I mean, if in terms of books to read, like, just because a large part of what I'm trying to do in general is really let's move to the place of all people are created equal. Like, let's remove all these stupid distinctions, right? And
I
really,
just want to note, post World War II is 1945. What else have we been going over? What happened in the 60s? You remember everything? That's when they
This poor girl
introduced
don't know shit.
welfare. That's when. That's what it was after World War II. That's when
Uh-huh.
abortion was legalized. That's when
Wow.
the father.
Abortion was legalized in 1973.
There was like all those things.
So the Black community was on like an upswing.
Yes.
And then
They had higher marriage rates than white people. There was accounts of slaves traveling across the U.S. to try to meet up with their family at post-slavery.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the government incentivized the Black community to take the dad out of the home.
my goodness, that
Yeah, but see, she naming that, but once again, she doesn't name the violence that happened to Black communities. With the civil rights movement, part of that was to get like a crime bill that the Asian American community got during the pandemic. She doesn't talk about that fight. She doesn't talk about, or Thomas Sowell. Maybe I got to read the book, but she's not talking about it. I can't say he's not talking about it because I didn't read the book. But she's not talking about, going off face value, the stuff that happened in our Black communities, the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X, may he rest in peace, fighting for our respects to be left alone. Either help us go back to our country or render us some states or some land and stuff and leave us the hell alone. They're not going to talk about that. But you're going to talk about other white people doing bullshit and then they try to separate white. Like they're not all American.
the question I always asked in my head, and I've asked my brothers and we've talked about it, and I'm like, what was it about the culture of Black people that they like didn't want us to know, to where, like he said in the beginning, we were robbed of that culture? Like, what was it that shifted it? Or in the West Indies, they're successful, they're doing all this stuff.
Well, they didn't want us to be able, from my understanding of history, with the Negro spirituals and all of that, we had to change our code of language. They taught us, gospel music and stuff, and we would put those in there where they would think we were singing just songs to God and just love, and we love our master, but it was cold. Down by the riverside. All the others, I can't think of, because I learned a bunch of them, but I can't think of other ones. But they were different songs. It was coded language. They would make us learn to talk like them enough for them to understand us. Couldn't talk like with our language and respectfully live our culture anymore because they wanted to keep control. That's why they did that. But that was not just in the South. It wasn't just in the South.
And then in America, it's a struggle. Like, what was that thing that they did not want us to know for us to be able to succeed in America?
Well, I think they just wanted Black people to depend on the government instead of themselves. So then they'd have the vote. It's all about like power, I think, anyways. This isn't.
I would say it was like that maybe further along. It may, I don't.
I'll show you. What percent of Black people do you think vote Democrat in the U.S.?
A lot.
Do you think it was always like that?
No, because it didn't Didn't the Republicans used to be
Mhm.
Democrats and vice versa?
Well, the Republicans freed the slaves. Why
Mm,
are they voting? Why are they voting for Democrats?
didn't
This is a good part.
wasn't the Republican Party
Mhm.
technically the Democratic Party? I don't
No, the
remember.
parties never switch. That's just something they say.
No, the bitch. This is the problem with a lot of younger Republicans. They talk about us, but they regurgitate things and parrot a lot of things to get ahead. And we talk about fembots, but we got Republican conservative bots as well. When they started, it was Democratic Republican. Thomas Jefferson moved along and made the Republican Party. They split and they separate. This is a little bit before slavery ended, was technically supposed to be ended. And there was one in the same. Two sides of the same coin. So when she says the Democrats that they have power, it's definitely some truth to that. But Republicans freeing the slaves, I got something for y'all. I'm gonna wait till she say something else, and I'm gonna pull something up for y'all. After this commercial, like I said, Pearl is getting paid for this.
Like, yeah,
So they never switched.
no,
They
no.
really
They just say that to like.
why?
I don't know.
Why do they?
Yeah, 'cause
lie?
she's lying. She's
I don't
embellishing,
know.
y'all.
It's propaganda, in my opinion. And I want to say it's like
America.
90%, like 90% of the black vote. And you know what's crazy too? Donald
true.
Trump got the biggest percentage of the black vote and for any Republican in like 50 plus years.
Really?
Yeah, and same with he did the First Step Act and the Second
Mhm.
Step Act, which disproportionately helped the black community. But what did the
Wow.
media tell you? Racist, racist, racist.
Because they know he is. And real quick, what 45 messed up is he's an opportunist. I ain't gonna say ain't no racism there. But somebody that sell you out for the bigger deal is not somebody trustworthy. She talks about women being hypergamous. And nothing good about a hypergamous businessman.
Wow.
It's like a
and I feel like they know that black people aren't going to do their research. They're going to.
most people don't do the research.
I know, true.
Yeah.
Most people don't do their research.
Yeah, and I'm sure you happy
but
she
I know
didn't either.
that when it comes, if you throw out the R word, it's like, oh no, we don't support them at
Mhm.
all. And I think
Republican.
I know that they know that if you throw out certain words to black people or say people did this and you may not have any proof of it, you may whatever. It's a thing that's like, we're not going to support them because they're automatically against us.
Mhm.
And it's crazy because I've heard that stuff.
Mhm.
I've heard that Donald Trump did this, that, and the third. I was still like hesitant, like, are you sure? What's your like stipulation
Mhm.
behind it? But then it's like, doesn't matter what his stipulation behind it. If it helped the black community, it helped the black community. If nobody died or was put into jail from it, it helped.
Mhm.
And that's a lot more than you can say from any other president, or from my knowledge.
Yeah. Well, and he did.
What make him racist or a influencer of is because we started seeing a lot of situations where it was a lot of racist, disrespectful, prejudiced, bigoted white people coming out disrespecting some of everybody and making it more issues. I've had a former co-worker tell me biggest reason why he voted for Trump is because he's tired of white people seeming to be the enemy. So to him, it was kind of fighting back. White man's burden.
They also did opportunity zones.
Mhm.
So that was for low income neighborhoods that helped them start businesses.
Really?
Yeah, but you don't hear about that.
So she's lying on that too. The opportunity zones actually help more white people than they did black people. And when we look at our communities now and we see all the gentrification for all my people out there, I know y'all know what I'm talking about. I talk to people in the North, Midwest, West Coast. I see it in the South. The opportunity zones that he gave help white people more. And opportunity zones was to, if you get a property for your business, home, whatever, you have so many years that you don't have to worry about paying taxes. Is one of the biggest things. And a lot of people, when you look at that time, this is when gentrification was really, really taking off. So now we're having issues in our own community. You got white corporations or corporations in general going off of this, being able to buy up a lot of property, and now they're telling you you have to have this credit score to move into this house. So when we look around our communities, what we see certain houses being rebuilt. I ain't saying people wrong for doing that, no matter who you are. But to act like we don't see it, we're just supposed to not see it, and it's not what we see. We're making it to be something else. We're delusional. Is bullshit. And I ain't saying it's such a terrible thing. It helps bring the property values up. But what makes it an issue is if you stayed not too far from that area, or you stay in the area, you want to get a house in that area, and they tell you have to have this, or that, you can't move in. Knowing that a lot of black people have to start getting their shit together. But if you move in a low income area and then you start trying to raise it up and say fuck everybody that's there, the regular residents and the people that's in that dwelling in that area, that neighborhood, you make it very difficult. It helped people do their business, because gentrification does hurt everybody. Even if you are white, you ain't got your shit together. But if you go in a low income area that's mostly people of color, black people, brown people, whatever, it's gonna hurt them more than anything.
He was really big in school choice. So we talked about the issues that are in the like public school system, right? And it's not really fair that if you're born into a poor neighborhood that you're forced to go to a certain school. He wanted people to be able to pick their school. And so you get like say $10,000 from each student say has $10K that the school gets from the government. So when you went to your public high school, right, the government got a certain amount of money for you, like the school does. And he wanted to say, okay, why don't we take that money and it follows the student. So if they want to go to a different school, it'll come with them. So you're not forced, as like if you're low income, you're not forced to go to a shitty school. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in a good family or rich family, right? Why do I get to get a good education? Everyone's entitled to that.
Yeah, that is true.
And so it's like stuff like that they don't talk about.
We have to help you Negroes.
You don't know. They'll just say racist. It's like they use that, I think, when someone's actually doing good a lot of the time.
To deter you from the truth.
Yeah, because they don't want you to listen to them.
Because just imagine, this is, just imagine if.
Because I know you have a lot of comments.
They didn't do that, and they spewed out the truth. I believe that he would have been reelected, and America wouldn't be going through what it's going through right now. Honestly, from my knowledge, and it may have been in a better place, but people don't know and they don't do their research, and they stick. One thing I learned with the last election, there's certain news outlets that are Democrat or Republican or in the middle. So they're going to push more Democratic stuff and then lie about the other side, or they're going to push more Republican and lie about the other side, or there's going to be even in the middle. But a lot of people don't watch those middle networks. They watch either the Republican side or the Democratic side.
You know what percent of the media is controlled by the left?
See how she went past that, being fair for everybody. She just went to the left. She doesn't address as far as the independent, it being a problem. I'm an independent now. I can vote for whoever policies make sense, but we got to go look through them and go through them thoroughly. Democrat or Republican or independent. But she's just going to take the side and say it's just the liberals. And you know what the issue is? A lot of that had to make change, because if this is what Republicans do, I know this. If their candidate represents them more and it represents rich, wealthy, white people more, they're not going to care that much to be that inclusive. That's why you see a lot of young black conservatives during Trump era doing a lot of the same things that they say Democrats do that's not right. I've been in different places and Republicans said crass, ooh, y'all like that, some crass shit to me. And I wasn't even talking nothing about politics. And then oh, you must be a Democrat. Really? What has got to do with being a Democrat? If I say, oh, the way these animals could be raised together, a lion, tiger, bear, oh my. Like, man, before hatred comes in, all the bullshit comes in, worrying about being humans and the stuff we got going on in this country, no matter what it is. Imagine if we were just able to be together. Forget all that other shit. We could care about each other more. Oh, you must be a Democrat. This was a conservative, Republican. And they always just try to blame it on each other. A lot of Republicans don't realize they're being gamed. They don't realize that.
Okay. Remind me what left and right is.
Oh, left is Democrats.
Okay. And then
She don't even know what the left and right is. Liberals, Republicans. That's how they do it. Liberals, but it's supposed to be conservative. Democrats, Republicans, that's what you're saying. There's conservative Democrats. Growing up, Black people, even though we started voting Democrats historically for all these decades, Black people were still pretty much conservative. How you think the 94 crime bill was passed?
and
I don't know the exact percentage, but it's like 90-something% of the media is controlled by the left. So there's certain people behind the scenes that own all of the media companies.
Wow.
Yeah. And oftentimes what happens on Twitter? Who got banned? The Republicans or the Democrats?
The Republican.
Yeah. And so
Wow.
that they silence us.
Wow.
Y'all see that? She just admitted to being a Republican. So this is where a lot of her mindset comes from. Y'all take note of that.
So interesting.
Live that principle. And the problem is that in order to really live that principle, you need a new narrative that beats slavery. So, it's not, if you go and talk to racists, you can't just say racism is bad. Like, that doesn't destroy racism, right? What destroys racism is when you make sense of the things that they know, right? They see, people who are violent in the ghettos, or they see crime, or they see a lack of education, or they see that Africa is poor. And you're able to tell a better story that makes sense of the things that they know, but also comes out with the conclusion, oh, we actually all have the same potential.
See, and that's what's the problem. He said if you go talk to racists, which is Pearl and him, you can't just tell racists that being racist is wrong. You have to tell them education, economics, and all that. That's what you have to tell Republicans. Racist, like, that's the true definition of racism. Israel talked about it on the show we had, and for us, Dr. Claude Anderson's theory on that racism, the race to be greater, and all of that stuff. But with Republicans, you have to explain the Republicans' economics. You have to explain the Republicans what's going on in their communities and why. Even though a Republican will sell you out to make a buck, I'm sorry to say, overall, sure, you have some Republicans, conservatives, or whatever that won't. But if you go to a regular bigot, oh, nigga, they stink, and they never give you a real reason why they hate Black people. Oh, Black people stink. Black people are evil. You can't give them a good reason to not hate us, or any other race for that matter. So if you telling me that if you explain economics and all of that, they'll get it. No, you're talking about your people. We ain't stupid. And real quick, I want to go to something, because she said about Republicans freeing the slaves, right? I want to show y'all something that they're not going to talk about. All right, y'all see this on the screen. Emancipation Proclamation 1863. President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, announcing that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious areas are and henceforth shall be free. And this I'm trying to see what it was. All right, National Archives.gov. Initially, the Civil War between North and South was fought by the North to prevent the secession of Southern states and preserve the Union. Even though sectional conflicts over slavery had been a major cause of the war, ending slavery was not a goal of the war. That changed on September 22, 1862, when President Lincoln issued a preliminary Emancipation Proclamation, which stated that enslaved people in those states or parts of states still in rebellion as of January 1st, 1863, would be declared free. 100 days later, with the rebellion unabated, President issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all persons held as slaves within the rebellion areas are and henceforth shall be free. Lincoln's bold step to change the goals of the war was a military measure and came just a few days after the Union's victory in the Battle of, please excuse me, Antietam? Antietam. My apologies. I should have clarified that better earlier. With this proclamation, he hoped to inspire all Black people and enslaved people in the Confederacy, in particular, to support the Union cause and to keep England and France from giving political recognition and military aid to the Confederacy. So they still was able to get that from them. But he wanted to keep it separated, which is what a lot of them do, mind you. Republican. Because it was a military measure, however, the Emancipation Proclamation was limited in many ways. It applied only to the states that seceded from the Union, leaving slavery untouched in the loyal border states. It also expressly exempted parts of the Confederacy that had already come under Union control. Most important, the freedom it promised depended upon military victory. Y'all get that? Although the Emancipation Proclamation did not end slavery in the nation, it did fundamentally transform the character of the war. After January 1st, 1863, every advance of federal troops expanded the domain of freedom. Moreover, the proclamation announced the acceptance of Black men into the Union Army and Navy, enabling the liberated to become liberators. By the end of the war, almost 200,000 Black soldiers and sailors had fought for the Union and freedom. Y'all go just to see this in a certain form. If you want to see theatrical or embellish, y'all can go watch the movie with Denzel Washington. You know, when he get whipped as a slave or whatever. I forget the name of that movie. Glory, with Morgan Freeman in it. It was like 8,000 years old. From the first days of the Civil War, enslaved people had acted to secure their own liberty. The Emancipation Proclamation confirmed their insistence of the war for the Union must become a war for freedom. It added moral force to the Union cause and strengthened the Union both military and politically. As milestone along the road to slavery's final destruction, the Emancipation Proclamation has assumed a place among the great documents of human freedom. So it's a lot of cap in that story. They actually wanted everybody to go back to where the hell we came from. I'm telling y'all, do y'all research, man. Because if you don't do your research, you hear certain things, especially if it comes from a white person, because you got a lot of Negroes out here that listen to this bullshit. Then you end up being one of them Negroes like her that probably end up being like,
other folks talking about slave, man. Wasn't nothing wrong with slavery. At least we got good food back then. White man sure could be your
Uncle Ruckus. Cats come out there being like Uncle Ruckus. Then when it comes to our people, they end up being like this.
We didn't even do nothing. Well, you think you tough? You look so tough now, little nigga. Hate you black bastards. You stink. I hate your black skin. hate your black pants. I hate black pepper. I hate black keys on the piano. I hate my gums because they black. I hate Whoopi Goldberg's lips. I hate the back of Forrest Whitaker's neck. Ah! And most of all, I hate that black-ass Wesley Snipes. Move it!
You see a lot of Negroes become like that. Let's get back to the video, y'all.
Wow.
I'm gonna show you one more video. Oh, and we're gonna do.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Let's get back to the video. She getting paid off this ignorance.
They also have the same potential. I believe if Black people knew that, they also have the same potential. And because they say it, but then they're like, but there's this, there's that. Like,
Yeah.
it would, like, I do believe like it would unlock something. And I've always said that. I'm like, if we as Black people unlocked that one thing in our brain that is not unlocked, it would. They would, like, we would be what we were created to be. But it's just like that thing that hasn't been unlocked, and it's not going to be unlocked unless someone tells them the truth. And
No, that's I don't.
See, what actually would happen if our brains was actually really, really, truly unlocked, we wouldn't be sitting around white people allowing them to tell us about our history. We would actually do the research we need to do and stick together. Once again, respect to the Jewish community. That's what we would do. These people got disrespected in their own homeland, rose up, did what they needed to do, and they don't let you move the goalposts on what's racist. Or unless they say nigga, they ain't racist. No, that's not how racism really works. It's about control. If these white people did it, and then you got Republicans that'll say slick shit, it's about us sticking together. The stuff that they're trying to teach you, which is a benefit to them, especially if they're Republican, for the most part, not all, some, but not all, we would realize we need to stick together and not depend on anybody. And we can have respect for your culture because you got respect for ours. Now, we'll realize we got the potential that we don't. I don't give a fuck what a Republican tells you. We don't. For them to try to get you to overlook what has happened in your culture when other races do not play that shit. Don't even come to me with that. We can talk about resources. We talk about networking. Fine. But don't tell me to forget my culture. And that's why we got to look further back than just slavery and see what it is in our homelands. Whether you from the islands, but it was from Africa to islands. Find out what your history is. That might just sound like the brother from waiting to exhale and from fucking Allstate. But find out what your history is. We can't be all over the place. Because for the most part, white folks like her, it benefits them. They still get their rags wet off of your sweat.
I was like, that's why like what we're doing is so important,
Yeah.
honestly, because it's like they teach them that like slavery is still holding them back. But if that was true, why is the group that was derived also from slavery from the West Indies, why do they outpace whites, or they're at least equal?
Yeah.
So
In certain situations, but it's not enough. It's not enough. You take a small minority group of people that are melanated people. You mean to tell me, say if people from the West Indies is about 2-3 million, and that's different cultures, different nationalities, ethnicities, or whatever, from different islands and stuff. You gonna tell me 2 million people are outpacing 200 million white people? No, that's just to trick you. This amount of people is technically are not big enough to compare. Like, real quick, let's go back to the red pill shit. When she talk about grape, y'all know what I'm talking about. But when she talks about grape, that's not enough to mention. That's less than 1%. So if you're talking about a people that's less than 1%, or maybe a 1 or 2%, you're gonna tell me that a people of 10 to 13% that's already here, well, actually 10, and they around 2-3%. You're gonna tell me this 3% matters to 64%? No. A million or around $1.2 million or less than that does not equal the fucking same. These people, when they come over here, they don't got no problem with white folks like that. Now, trust me, you got some that are very woke, very conscious about the bullshit. Because when it comes down to it, just because they got a green, black, and yellow flag in their car, or red, green, and black flag in their car, if a police officer is racist, they're going to treat them as that. If a white person or whoever is racist, they're going to treat them as a nigga. It don't matter what color flag in your car, don't matter what accent you got. They still going to disrespect you. That, oh, you're different from those niggas. My bad, my apologies. You're great. That's some real racist shit. That's some racist shit, y'all.
I can tell you that. I do have a question for you. Do you ever get people that ask you about like, well, why are you talking about slavery? Like, your people were the ones that put us there. You don't know nothing.
What did I do? I'm Irish. I'm Irish.
Have you ever had someone?
We didn't have any slaves.
Have you ever had someone
German.
say, "But you're white, so your people did it, and you're American, so your people did it"? Have you ever had people like say that to you?
But if I did, I mean, I'm sure in my comment section, sure, never in person. People are pretty like pussy, to be honest. Like they're not gonna say shit to your face.
No, I got you. So,
yeah, if they ever did, that's how I'd be like, look at, I'm like Irish, Polish, German, Lithuanian. Like, what do we do?
Everything from over here.
Like we came. My ancestors came after all this shit.
Yeah, man. And I feel like a lot. I wish there was like not a poll, but I guess you can say a poll.
So she says her people did nothing because she's Irish, German, Polish, right? That's what she would say. Then she said people are coochie box, so they're not gonna say nothing. They're not gonna say nothing. So that's what she would say. But that's what she would say. So she ain't gotta worry about that. This is why you gotta do your history. To Irish, German, and Polish. So let me go to this real quick. Since she said that. There was certainly a slave trade, and many slaves were sold to the Romans. Such potters as used the weed, and these were very few, and smiths, miners, no doubt, sold their products. But in general, the average German village is unlikely to have used many objects that had not been made at home. Okay, so they did have something to do with slavery, period, right? Now, let's see if they had anything to do with the Atlantic slave trade. All right. Who was a German barber surgeon? Hold on, that's not what I wanted. Because it was something I seen it. All right. It says full article, German entanglements and transatlantic slavery, an introduction. All right. Let's go to that. This essay aims at bringing together research on Germany's colonial past, imperialist endeavors with current trends in scholarship in Atlantic history and slavery studies. While scholars of German history have begun to challenge what Jürgen Zimmer has called the colonial amnesia of Germans, the transatlantic slave trade and New World slavery have rarely been included in discussions about national commemorative cultural debates because Germany, it is claimed, has never directly and profitably participated in the economics of slavery. For the longest time, Germany hasn't entertained the notion that the translated slave trade and New World slavery involved only other European players such as England, France, Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands, or Denmark. And indeed, it seems plausible that for its own history, Germany is able to claim non-participation. Yet, the transatlantic slave trade and New World slavery were part of the earliest economic enterprises that embodied and inherently relied on global networks of trade that uprooted and relocated people in unprecedented numbers, building on the pioneer work of scholars like Klaus Weber, Ev Rosenhaus, Felix Brahms, and Mishka Honeck. Y'all excuse me because you gotta have that that accent to completely say it correctly. This essay recharts the various routes of German participation in profiteering from, as well as shown resistance to transatlantic slavery and its cultural, political, and intellectual reverberations. The essay thereby seeks to interrogate historical processes or fantasies of empire building, colonialism, and slavery, which, according to public memory, seem to have taken place in isolation from each other. Yet we claim that they should be regarded as part or parcel of a narrative that ingrained colonialism and slavery in German cultural memory and identified to a large extent that has been illustrated and admitted so far in general discourses in contemporary Germany. So a lot of them act like they had nothing to do with it in the beginning. Now, I'm not gonna say it was that big, it was not. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't there. Now, the Irish. I saw something about the Irish because she said they had nothing to do with it because she's saying, or it's not having anything to do with it when they came to America, it was already over. Now let's go to the Irish and Atlantic slave trade. So let's talk a little bit about that. It was the Stuarts who introduced the Irish to the slave trade. Charles II returned to the throne in 1660 at a time when it was becoming clear that sugar plantations, that was big in Louisiana, were as valuable as gold mines. The Royal Africa Company was established to supply slaves to British West Indians in order to extend production. Irish names can be found among those working for the RAC. Among the most successful was William Ronan, who worked in West Africa for a decade, 1687 to 97. A Catholic Irishman, he rose to become the chairman of the Committee of Merchants at Cape Castle in present-day Ghana. His career apparently unhindered by the ascent of William of Orange. In the 17th century, Europeans saw slaving as respectable and desirable. It was conveniently accepted that Africans sold into slavery by their rulers were prisoners of war, POW, who would otherwise have been slaughtered. Thus, export to the Americas offered them prolonged life in a Christian society. It was a century later when public sensitivities began to change that such attitudes to the slave trade were called into question. So she's saying she had nothing to do with it because her ancestors didn't do nothing by the time they came to this country. Y'all keep doing your research. I'm gonna keep doing more research, but we're seeing stuff that her ancestors played part in. Not saying directly, bloodline ancestors. Not saying she had nothing to do with it, but she doesn't really know her history. And like I said, how you gonna school somebody you don't know your own history? But let's continue.
To see like what a percentage of I guess you could say white Americans were derived from, like,
Less than 1%.
really?
It was only 3%, I think, back then. Remember, most people didn't own a plantation. And what if you derive from the people in the North that fought against slavery?
As y'all seen, I read earlier about Abraham Lincoln and what he did. I didn't even show the fact that I might show this later before I get out of it. He was writing against freeing slaves. He actually didn't become president till the 4th time that he ran a presidential election. 4 times. He won the 4th time. What are we talking about? Like, what?
And most people in the U.S.
And also, she's around 3% of the country. But we're talking about them benefiting from it. Shout out to Jason Black, the Business Podcast, once again. Cotton, sugar. These were luxuries. So once it built up, they was able to benefit from it. Not only that, it's like this is where the prison system came from, the mindset that because it used to just be watchmen and all of that. It wasn't nothing serious like that. You know, you would have mobs go after people if they did something crazy in the community. That's why if something happened maybe once, if not twice at the most, people were outraged. They went after that person that did something or said persons. But this country really benefited from it. Cotton, up until now, we wear cotton t-shirts. Sugar. Just a couple things like that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, coffee was one too. But them able to get labor, borrowing slaves to get labor, pay the slave master. This is it. All right, it's free labor technically, but it still is a cost. That's just like if you, and not to say that about our ancestors. Please, y'all don't think I'm using this analogy to be heartless or insensitive. But just y'all follow me, run a marathon with me. Recipes Neb Hustle. That's just like if you buy a car, you still have to have upkeep, oil change. You may need some new tires. You know, wash your car. Definitely got to put gas in every day. So if they had slaves back then, you got to feed them, you got to clothe them, and all. They can't just run around butt naked. You know what I'm saying? You have to take care of them enough as if like the way you might take care of a lawnmower. That's the insensitive shit that went along with these people. So this country benefited off of this free labor. Other people was able to borrow these slaves to do certain things. At this time, you're not gonna sit there and tell me that more people, white folks, whatever, were able to work harder than the way they did these slaves. Telling y'all, you gotta make sure you do your history, because you don't want to be one of these ass niggas that be talking about.
Other folks talking about slave, man. Wasn't nothing wrong with slavery. At least we got good food back then. White man sure could be your.
That part. But let's go back to the video.
US came from, like, there was a huge migration in the early 1900s, I want to say.
Wow. There's so many questions.
Same time in the early 1900s when they came back and did Birth of a Nation, the original one, where they had white people playing blackface and putting out that narrative in movie theaters about niggas being savages.
There's not enough time in the day.
We got time.
It's
got
just
time to
long
school.
form
I got time to
content,
school, you
baby.
Negro.
At The Real, luxury is Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Prada. Luxury is scoring something amazing for 90%.
I can't like form a question because there's just so much going through my brain from like what I've learned growing up and then hearing this stuff and then hearing the stats you're giving me. I'm just like, why is like the big question was like this like just kept, and why is it that when you see a Black person talking like Thomas Sowell, and I've said it in another video, why is it that we like clamp up or we dismiss them? And I guess you could probably say the same thing about Candace Owens.
I love Candace. Come on our channel.
See,
Of course, she loves Candace.
I don't think I've ever.
She loves any. Gotta be careful about certain words. She loves any race traitor that talks against us. Candace Owens, Thomas Sowell. I'm surprised you didn't say Brandon Tatum. People like that. Oh, I love Candace Owens. Candace Owens is speaking against Black American culture. To hell with what this bitch said. Black American culture and Democrats. And women. But we have to be careful about being fooled about certain things. So yeah, I'm sure she loves Candace Owens.
Sat down and listened to a full video of Candace. I listened to a clip or a snippet of when I think it was George Floyd when all that stuff went down.
What did she call though? She called Black Lives Matter.
Did she really?
Oh yeah, she's been
Oh,
saying
I
for
didn't-
years it was a scam.
Oh, I didn't know that she called that because I didn't watch the full clip. I
Yeah,
just watched a little
sorry, I
snippet.
thought that's what you're talking about. Keep going.
No,
Yeah, but see, I agree with that. I'll say this real quick. My issue with Black Lives Matter, when I seen what they were trying to say about reparations and all that, with plan handbook they put together, I didn't agree with it. It didn't make sense. But what ended up overriding that was the fact of the way they spoke about Black Lives Matter as a movement. They wasn't being intelligent about how they was conveying their message, communicating to the people, especially Black people. Meaning, what are they? Hold their feet to the fire. What are you gonna do for Black people? Like, how do we come together? This is what people, whether white people, Republicans, conservatives, or people of any, which is usually a minority of people of any other race that got money or think a certain way. The way we can have great race relations is, all right, how do we fix this? And let's talk reasonable. What can we do? Because you can pass bills all day to get and get money. They do that. They send it to other countries. So we can have that conversation. That would be my thing about anybody. I had conversation with other people before about these things. What kind of information can you give me? What kind of resources can we network together with? Not saying just give me anything, not a handout, but an opportunity. Like, okay, I built this. What can we exchange? Just like the barter system way back then. What can we exchange in goods to actually do something? Instead of you looking at me, oh, I'm Black, and I just want a handout. Now, I'm not saying race relations regardless of what Candace Owens said, has been a difference in race relations since, unfortunately, George Floyd passing away, God rest his soul. And much love and respect to everybody around the globe, around the world, that's seen that atrocity and responded with respect and sensitivity. But if we're going to talk about that, especially in this country, we need to come together to see what we can do and build. But when you hear strong Black people, especially strong Black men, talk the shit that I'm talking, stop taking it as an offense. Like I'm saying, go get white folks in a violent way. That's not what I know. Me and other Black people that I respect, because my mentors don't do that shit. They don't get around white folks and make them feel uncomfortable. We're able to talk, communicate, be respectful to each other, or any other race for that matter. Just be respectful to me. We respect everybody else's culture, respect ours. Whether this bitch want to talk about, oh, Black people got the London culture, but it's okay, we have the white American culture, which is still derivative from fucking European culture, period. We can respect each other. That's what we need to talk about. Telling y'all do your research.
No, it was that. It was that
Okay.
incident, but I didn't see the part where she called Black Lives Matter and all that. And yeah, I was just like, how could
But yeah, they did mess us up where Black Lives Matter. They just talking like it was Boys and Girls Club or it was just the YMCA or something. The forethought was Black people's lives matter. When they was insensitive, whether it was Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, or whoever, made a lot of Black people like, what the fuck? It's a what? Being Black is what? We're terrorist people now? They didn't look at the organization. There was no togetherness on this. There was no respect. It was insensitive. That was the problem.
can you say that? You're Black. Da, 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 da. I'm like, I can't stand this chick, blah, blah, blah. But I guess people probably have the same reaction with Thomas Sowell. Like, how can you say that? Like, you're Black. Like, you should be for us. If you're not for us, you're automatically against us. And that's a huge mindset that I've seen in the Black community. And it's just like, learn, like, open your brain. If you don't agree with it, cool, keep it pushing. But you may unlock something that you never unlocked before, and your life may be changed from it.
Once you see
Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
So the next part I'm going to
Adios,
show
mio.
you is 5
God.
facts about slavery never mentioned in schools. So this is from a Sowell book, but it's just, yeah, you'll see. You'll see.
They go from a Thomas Sowell book. Let's get it.
Yeah, see, this is my favorite book.
Of course.
Black rednecks and white liberals.
Yep. Another commercial. She getting paid, y'all.
The instrumental use of the history of slavery today also underlies the claim that slavery grew out of racism. For most of its long history, which includes most of the history of the human race, slavery was largely not the enslavement of racially different people, for the simple reason that only in recent centuries has either the technology or the wealth existed to go to another continent to get slaves and transport them en masse across an ocean. People were enslaved because they were vulnerable, not because of how they looked. The peoples of the Balkans were enslaved by fellow Europeans.
So they say not because of how they look, they were enslaved. Well, I mean, if you think about it, it turns into that. It grew legs and walked. It grew legs and walked away. These are the people. These are the people that look like. Not just once slavery started, you go over here and anybody you see, you gonna turn into a slave. No, racism grew legs. Oh, go over here. These people look like this. We're gonna get these people. Now, of course, they still knew the hopping bobs, the bootleggers, and all the bootlickers and the house Negroes versus the field Negroes to deal with. But don't act like it didn't turn into that. That's the problem I have with Thomas Sowell.
Maybe what does he mean by vulnerable? Like they were weak-minded, or they were just
It was like the weaker people. Because back
Okay.
then you had 2 tribes.
Okay.
They'd fight. The winners would take the losers.
Okay.
The difference was when it came over here to this country, it turned into chattel slavery, where they would breed the slaves and all that, raise them up to love them and all this bullshit. Why is she talking about it? Anyways, so it changed over in this country. They turned us into machines for work.
So was there a fight that we didn't know about? And
Oh, everywhere.
and
The Native Americans fought with each other. African tribes fought with each other. Europeans fought with each other.
and then
Alexander the Great conquered most of Europe.
that is true.
How you know?
Wow. When you say it from that standpoint, it's like, yeah,
Yeah, proximity. This is your family. This is your community. This is your block. This is your city. This is your county. This is your state. This is your country. We come together when certain things happen. So it makes sense. But they're trying to say, oh, what white people came in and did was not that bad because they was already doing it to each other.
The losers lost. Yeah, take them.
Yeah,
When you like explain it.
They're the weaker.
But POWs for the most part became indentured slave servitude or whatever how you ever said, and can work for their freedom. POWs were different, and that was very highly likely to happen in Africa or any other place. Of course, you got certain other places they was grotesque in how they treated their POWs, of course, especially the women. Disgusting. I ain't gonna even talk about that, but I'm sure y'all get what I'm saying. What would happen?
People. I mean, why do you think black people sold black people into the slave trade? They weren't thinking. They weren't thinking. Oh, they're black. I shouldn't. They're thinking, let me get this bag.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not. Sorry. Don't clip me. Don't clip me.
Yeah, but she don't know what she be saying. Y'all heard what she just said? Let me go back a little bit.
Most of Europe.
That is true. Wow, when you say it from that standpoint, it's like, yeah, the losers lost. Yeah, take them.
Yeah,
when you like explain it,
they're the weaker people. I mean, why do you think black people sold black people into the slave trade? They weren't thinking. They weren't thinking. Oh, they're black. I shouldn't. They're thinking, let me get this bag.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not. Sorry. Don't clip me. Don't clip me.
So this miss, I don't know anything. I'm just a girl. Bitch, know what she said. That's why she said, don't clip me. She know what the fuck she just said. She know it was disrespectful. Now, from the aspect of what she was trying to come to, because I had conversation with older black people about this, well, especially black men. And I remember I had this conversation one time with this older brother, respectfully, I ain't disliking the cool older brother. And he said that too, and I already knew it, but he said, I was like, yeah. And that doesn't make what white people did okay. If I'm on one block, this clique is on another block. Me and my homies on one block, they homies on another block, right? We have beef and issues. When the police come through, those swinging, ready to arrest somebody, they're not looking at the fact that, this is that crew versus that crew. These people might have did something wrong to them. All they're looking at is who broke the law, right? Or some racist. I got to get whoever I can get on either side. I don't care what happened. We got to calm this down, which I can respect. Both crews on both blocks, both homeboys or whatever on each other block is still going to look at this police officer as a issue. But then what do you do when this police officer go get with your enemies to help take you down? Which is what a lot of crooked police officers did, no matter the race. That was the issue when it came to in Africa back in the ancient times with our ancestors. You had these Portuguese or whoever, whatever people, nationality, whatever race, whatever, go over here, get with these community of people or tribes, and yeah, let me get him up off you. I'll give you a couple shillings. I'll give you some gold coins, silver coins. Give you something nice. Let me get him up off you. All right, cool. Well, okay, cool. I'm gonna take them over this country, and a lot of them not gonna survive on the boat trip there, which took, I believe, months at this time. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, from the U.S., especially depending on how further north you are in the U.S. or West Coast, on the boat rides is months. It's like 20, almost a whole day, if not a whole 24 hours to get from America to Africa or something like that. So, or Asia, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But they're not gonna survive on this boat ride. We're making a deal or trade. These are your enemies anyways. So of course, tribe against tribe, enemy against enemy, they're not gonna care like that, especially if they can get some money off of it. But you had these white devils at that time. For the ones who did it, you had these white devils at this time that did it. Came in there with their trickery. And once again, shout out to my cousin. Shout out to Slick. You know you is Slick. We had this conversation. And a certain different religion, the devil is not like Christianity, the way the devil's looked at. And my peoples, and I know I always mess it in there. I apologize. You know I ain't versed in, you know, the language. But with Santeria, the devil is the trickster. Now in Christianity, we always talk about how conversations, you know, personally conversations talk about it, which I'm sure he won't mind me saying this because this is just this part. In Christianity, we always blame, because I was Christianity before. I'm not saying I ain't learned nothing a lot and didn't keep it. My spirituality is different nowadays. But for my religion before, it was blame the devil for everything, not your actions. Now, there are scriptures in the Bible and all that. Hey, you gonna have to give an account of your sins. But in Santeria, he's the trickster. This is what he's supposed to do. So technically in Christianity, it's technically the same thing. Real quick, Job, Book of Job, which is spelled like job. You know, when I was a kid. I was a kid. That's how I looked at it. Book of Job. The devil had to ask permission to fuck with Job. That's what happened. He's the trickster. Now I get what the Nation of Islam was talking about back then when they said the white devil. Because vastly around, historically, they was doing some foul fuck shit. Europeans, Caucasian, Mountain of Caucasus. Now we supposed to sit here and act like they didn't do shit wrong. Okay.
Yeah. When, oh God,
because they had slaves, so they had black slaves.
Yeah,
so it was okay.
Yeah, I'm like, no, they didn't. They didn't have it. But
so this is going to be the part 1, and then I'm going to do another stream to finish this video out. So it is stopped at 30 minutes, almost 31 minutes, 47. So it's about 29 minutes left, just about, well, a little under 29 minutes, 28 minutes, some change. So this is part 1. And then, God willing, Sunday night, I'm going to do a part 2. So y'all make sure y'all check that out. All right. This your boy, JTL, a.k.a. Out from the Norm, a.k.a. Big Op. Definitely want y'all to come back. We're gonna keep covering things. Pearl keep fucking up, putting a foot in her mouth. She also talking about coming back at people who the response. She want to do a response video and people disrespect her and all this bullshit. Like the bitch ain't do nothing wrong. People twist and tangled her words and made her something she's not, what she actually is. At first, I said she was implicitly biased. Now I realize the bitch is racist, but she's still stupid in a goofball. She ain't but 26, so she still got a lot to learn. So I appreciate all my brothers and sisters out there that checking her pasty ass. She's gonna keep learning. We got more to do. And if these house Negroes want to go ahead and cape for her to make her feel emboldened to come back and say whatever the fuck she's saying, all right, cool. Do that. But guess what? We're gonna check your ass too. Once again, this your boy JTL, aka Out from the Norm 18, aka Big Op. Appreciate y'all. Make sure you holler at your boy. All right.